Allahu Akbar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum everyone. Today my partner and I will be presenting about the Republic of Yemen. Before that, I am Al-Qaeda and my metric number is 1817482. For this presentation, we will cover on the introduction where we will explain about the background of Yemen. Then we will continue the discussion with the colonialism history, emergence of nationalism, formation of independent state, current political situation, condition of secularism, economic status, as well as the social aspect. And we will end our presentation with the conclusion. So please bear with us and enjoy this presentation. Between Oman and Saudi Arabia. Yemen is bounded to the south by the Gulf of Aden and the Arabian Sea, and to the west by the Red Sea. Yemen also occupies an area of 527,970 square kilometers, including the island of Socotra. Then moving on to the capital. The capital and the largest city is Sana'a, which is located in the western part of the country, about 160 kilometers east of the Red Sea in the Yemeni highlands at Mount Lugum. And for your information, the old city of Sana'a was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So this is the national flag of Yemen that was adopted on May 22nd, 1990 upon the unification of North Yemen and South Yemen. Officially, the red color of the flag represents the unity of the nation and the blood that was shed by the martyrs. White symbolizes the bright future of the nation and its people, while black signifies the nation's dark history. These three colors are also known as the Pan-Arab colors. According to United Nations data, the population of Yemen is estimated at 29.8 million people at mid-year of 2020, and from that, 38.4% of the population is urban. Next, the ethnic groups, religions, and language of Yemen. Yemen's population is predominantly Arab, but they tend to divide themselves according to the north and south. The other ethnic includes Afro-Arabs, South Asian, and Europeans. Yemen's official religion is Islam, and mostly all Yemenis are Muslims, with approximately 55% belonging to the Shafi'i Sunni school of thought, and approximately 45% belonging to the Zaydi Shia school of thought. There are also some Christian, Jews, and Hindus in Yemen. The official language of Yemen is Modern Standard Arabic, as established by Article 2 of the 1991 Constitution. At least 5 other spoken dialects of Arabic are also used throughout the country. Yemen is also home to a number of immigrants and international business. Because of this diversity, foreign language such as English is currently spoken in Yemen. Next, about the climate. Generally, the climate of Yemen can be described as a tropical desert on the coast and in the lowlands, while it is mild and moderately rain on the highlands. During summer, from June to September, the southwest monsoon brings some rainfall to the western highlands, while in the rest of the country it is cloudiness but practically no rain. Yemen's natural resources are natural gas, oil, as well as mineral resources. Other natural resources include fish, as Yemen rich in a wide variety of commercial desirable fish and crustaceans. Yemen also has fertile lands in the western part, which it is used for agriculture. Now I will introduce to you the President of the Republic of Yemen, Abu Mansur Hadi. He is the second and current President of Yemen, who took office on 27 February 2012. The legality of his claim to presidency is in question, as he was the only candidate in the 2012 election, and it was stated that the end of his mandate was originally set for 27 February 2014, but his mandate was extended for another year. However, after the expiration of his mandate, he still remained in power. Later, on 22nd January 2015, he handed over his resignation. Then, about a month later, on 21st February 2015, Hadi presented himself again as the president in Aden. Next is the Prime Minister of Yemen, which is Abdul Malik Said. He is a Yemeni politician who has been the Prime Minister of Yemen since 18 October 2018. Recently, on 30th December 2020, he involved in a large explosion at Aden Airport shortly after the plane carrying the newly formed cabinet from Saudi Arabia landed there. Luckily, it is reported that he and his cabinet were safe.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Asmila, metric number 1810054. I will proceed the presentation with the emergence of colonialism in Yemen. Before that, as you can see, there are Sana'a, which is located in the north, and Aden, which is located in the south. This map is to give you all a clear illustration of what we will discuss later on. Alright, colonialism in Yemen. Before that, just want to inform you guys for this part, I will explain the history of colonialism in the north and south, since both were colonized by different foreign powers, and these two components of Yemen underwent strikingly different histories. Alright, North Yemen was under Ottoman rule in the 16th century, yet many rebellions happened. So the Imam, which is the Shia Islam, they fight against the Ottoman rule because they wanted to regain North Yemen. In 1818, the Imam was only able to recover the northern Yemen temporarily. Remember, it's just temporary. Why? This was because there are new intervention by Ottoman delegates of Egypt in 1833. So this is considering that the Ottomans seized the coast from the ruler of Sana'a. So Ottoman returned after 2 centuries in Yemen. So this was because the Ottoman worried about the British expansion in Yemen from India. In 1849, the Zaydis rulership evolved into chaos and disruption. So the Ottoman forces, they tried to capture Sana'a, but to no avail, and they were asked to shift away from the highlands. However, Ottomans insisted to remain in Yemen because of the opening of Suez Canal in 1869. For your information, Suez Canal is an Egypt artificial sea level waterway, as what you can see in the picture on the right side. So by the 16th century and again in the 19th century, northern Yemen was controlled in the cities by the Ottoman Empire and in tribal areas by Zaydi Imams' suzerainty. So North Yemen became independent once the Ottomans withdrew themselves after the end of World War I. The North's long struggle against Turkish rule finally succeeded in 1918 when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and thereafter North Yemen was ruled by the Imams of the Zaydis, which is Yahya Mahmud al-Mutawakkil, as in the picture on the left side. Imam Yahya also did not recognize the Anglo-Ottoman border agreement in 1905, which resulted on the separation of Yemen into north and south. He did not recognize this agreement simply because the agreement was made between two foreign powers occupying Yemen. However, conflicts and crises arose between the Imams royalists and the Republican, and later it led to civil war that lasted tragically until 1970. In 1948, the Imam Yahya was assassinated in a palace coup, and he was succeeded by his son, Imam Ahmad, so the ones on the right side. So he succeeded his father until his own death in September 62. Then Imam Ahmad's son wanted to succeed him, but unfortunately he was deposed by the army officers led by Abdullah al-Salal. Later in 1962, Northern Yemen became Yemen Arab Republic, or YAR, after the end of the Mutawakkilite Kingdom, which started in 1918 by the Imams. By the late of 1960s, the Yemenis decided that only logical outcome of the conflict was a compromise, which would have as its most important side effect of the departure of the various foreign forces. First half of 18th century, the Europeans' activity of smuggling Yemen's coffee trees and cultivate them in their colonies primarily in East Indies, East Africa, West Indies, and Latin America. It was first happened when the British went through Aden for trading purposes and the Arab tribesmen looted the ships. Then in 1839, Aden was bombarded by a warship under the command of Captain Stafford Spectators both hands, and British took over Aden. In 1850, Aden was declared as free zone. Free zone here means a region within which, without payment of duty, goods, and which means that the goods can be received and processed. So British expanded to the north and east from Aden, and later they established protectorates. British remained their control in South Yemen because it is important strategically and economically for their empire. Most important event was their inclusion of Hadramaut and its valley into the protectorate system. So the inclusion of Hadramaut and its valley into the protectorate system had brought unity to 1,400 tribes and clans that were fighting for over decades. So the establishment of independence of North Yemen triggered the southern Yemenis to terminate British presence in the south. Alright, now moving on to the emergence of nationalism in Yemen. The rise of nationalism in Ottoman Empire was a result of a reaction towards the Ottoman attempts to implement more direct rule. The south, after the independence of the north in 1918, was yet to get the independence from the British. So in response to British colonialism and northern independence, the Egyptians agreed to support and aid some of the organizations for the southern independence. Nationalism in Yemen did not emerge naturally nor due to their frustration which they felt when the Europe started to dominate the world after the Industrial Revolution. In my point of view, nationalism in Yemen arose from the influence of the Arab nationalism or nationalists which established themselves or they established in many political organizations. Nationalists unified in Yemen in order to fight decolonization. One of their targets was to end and to remove the British rule. Nationalism therefore could be used as a means to pursue power. On the other hand, it could also be harnessed constructively to bolster the state against the centrifugal tendencies of tribal power. And this will be seen shortly. Alright. Britain announced the independence of South Yemen will issue no later than 1968. By 1965, all but 4 of the 21 protectorate states around South Yemen had joined the Federation of South Arabia. In the same year, British suspended the Federation of South Arabian government and they imposed direct colonial rule. Realizing that the British weren't going to give Asnak the control, he fled to the country and he joined the NLF. However, the elements of the NLF become more radical Marxist and they split from the Egyptians. So Asnak formed his own military organization, which is FOSI, in order to counter the NLF. So conflict of two rival factions, which is FOSI and NLF, arose as the time for the independence approaching. So the conflict escalated to decide who has the right to govern South Yemen after British withdrawal. Muhammad al-Badr of the Yemenese monarchy was overthrown and civil war ensued between forces backed by Egypt like the NLF and monarchist forces backed by the British. Arab nationalists deposed King Muhammad as what I had been mentioned. It ended the northern kingdom of Yemen, and in 1692 it marks the Arab nationalist coup in northern kingdom and first violence in 5 years armed struggle to remove British from south. By February 1967, the British could no longer control or protect its bases in Aden and they announced it was leaving the country. Later, in late 1967, British finally accepted and transferred the sovereignty to NLF from its rival, the Arab nationalists. So, the new government in Aden renamed the country the People's Republic of South Yemen, but not long after that, in June 1969, a radical wing of the NLF gained power. Therefore, the country name changed to the People's Democratic Republic of Yemen, PDRY, on December 1st, 1970. So, during that time, South Yemen was lacking of money and they were unable to receive any substantial quantities of aid. Thus, it started to drift towards the Soviet Union, where they wanted to offer economic and technical aid in return of getting Arab state into its political sphere.
For the formation of independent state, I will explain about the process of unification between the South Yemen and North Yemen on becoming one state of republic. First of all, in September 1972, a fighting erupted between the North and the South. North Yemen was supplied by Saudi Arabia and South Yemen was supplied by the Soviet Union. And fighting was short-lived and the conflict led to the Cairo Agreement on October 1972 regarding a plan to unify the two countries. Then the process followed by the Tripoli Agreement on 28 November 1972, which the Arab people in Yemen agreed on the unification of the North and South to establish as a single state known as Republic of Yemen. However, a war broke out again in February 1979. This time, the South won a decisive victory in alliance with National Democratic Front, and this conflict was also short-lived, and once again the two sides restated their commitment to unity in the aftermath of the conflict, and a decision was reached to draw up a unified constitution within 4 months. Over the course of the 1980s, little to no progress was made. This is commonly due to the ideological difference that existed between the North and South. Back then, toward the end of the decade, things began to change. By now, unification became interest of both countries, which later, in May 1988, the two governments came to an understanding that considerably reduced tension. They also agreed to renew discussion concerning unification, where both parties will withdraw troops from their mutual border and allow easier border crossing for citizens of both North and South area. Later on 30th November 1989, both leaders from North Yemen and South Yemen jointly accepted a draft on unity constitution during the Aden Summit Agreement, and they are also in fulfillment of the struggle of the Yemeni people and the sacrifice of its martyrs in building a united independent of Yemen. Then on 22nd April 1990, an agreement on the proclamation of the Republic of Yemen and arrangement for the transitional period was signed in Sana'a. On 5th of May 1990, another agreement was signed during the meeting held by Political Organization Committee in Taiz. In the meeting, national awareness was expressed on the need for renewing the necessary rules for political activity in the Yemeni Republic in a way that would consolidate free democratic practices in accordance with the goals of the Yemeni revolution for all sectors and all levels of society. And then finally, on May 22nd, 1990, the unification of North Yemen and South Yemen was formally declared and the Republic of Yemen came into existence. Unfortunately, as we know, the unification did not go well and lead to the civil war, which my partner will explain further about this.
Okay, let's move on to the current political situation in Yemen. So, what is actually happening in Yemen right now? So, I think it is a need for me to explain what is the root problem that lead to the emergence of other problems in Yemen and situations happening there right now. So the country has been plagued by political infighting between southern secessionists and the supporters of United Yemen, as well as between Shia Houthis and the central government. First, political problems, and I believe to be the major factor that lead to the other crises that happening right now in Yemen is Yemeni civil war since 2014 and still ongoing until present days. So this war is a power struggle going on between North Yemen, which is located in Sana'a, and South Yemen in Aden. The war is prominently between Abdurrabbuh Mansur Hadi, which is Yemen's current president, and the Houthis. So the one who is at the bottom is the current Houthi leader named Abdul Malik al-Houthi. So fast forward to 2014, the Yemeni civil war was deployed by the Houthi rebels under Abdul Malik al-Houthi, they claim that the government are corrupt and disregards the needs of the people. The Houthis took over Sana'a capital in 2014 and they aim for taking over the government. On January 2015, Abdul Rabuh Mansur Hadi submitted his resignation and later he left the country with power void. Power void happened when someone has lost control of something and no one has replaced them. However, on late February 2015, Hadi returned to Aden and he claimed that he was still a legitimate president of Yemen, but then he departed again to Saudi Arabia and stayed there even until now. So Yemeni government worked in exile from Saudi Arabia, like the intervention by Saudi Arabia and stuff. So this could be regarded as proxy war, right? So this proxy war happened between Houthi forces backed by Iran and Saudi-supported Yemeni government. For Yemen, which is 40% Shia and 60% Sunni, there seems to be no end in sight for conflict and political strife. What actually happened now in Yemen is regional fighting between Shia-ruled Iran and Sunni-ruled Saudi Arabia. The Saudi-led coalition worried that the Houthis' continued success would give their rival regional force and the Shia majority state Iran a foothold in Yemen. The Saudi coalition I mentioned here consists of the Saudis, United Arab Emirates, as well as the Yemeni government itself in southern Yemen. So they are basically the Saudi-supported Yemeni government led by the current president, which is Abdul Rabuh Mansur Hadi, and the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council, or STC. STC is like an organization which are based in South Yemen. The Saudi Arabia-led coalition in Yemen was claimed as an initiative towards refinement in spite of resulting in wide-ranging casualties. This means that they are not taking care of the people. They are just thinking about their personal interests, and later the people are the one who suffer due to the war and casualties keep increasing. The Houthi was supported by former president, which was Saleh, for almost a year. You see, he was still a key player in Yemen's politics. The latest news we got is on December 2020, where the president announced the formation of power-sharing government. Formation was supported and encouraged by Saudi Arabia, which Yemeni government and the SDC agreed to create a power-sharing government which claim on unity. So this formation was agreed by 24 ministers. However, the agreement of power-sharing government received opposition from within, as hundreds of people protested in Taiz city demanding for immediate return of Yemeni presidency and government because they were in Saudi during the agreement. The people demands the government to take constitutional oath in the temporary capital of Aden, not in Riyadh. Plus, the formation of the new government is lack of any minister from their area to be included. So 12 parliament members from Tihama region were not included. So the members of the parliament said that they were surprised when the newly formed government did not include any minister from Tihama region. So the formation of the new government also witnessed the opposition from the feminist movement, which claimed that the government excludes women for the first in 2 decades. The feminist government launched a campaign on social media under No Woman, No Government that described the power-sharing agreement as unfair discrimination against women's right to political participation. The women are demanding that 30% of the seats should go to females and 20% should go to youth. The new government also got negative feedback as there were explosions at Aden's airport upon the arrival of the members of Yemen's government. It was claimed to be a terrorist attack with at least 26 people were killed and 60 injured. Right, next, corruption index in Yemen. Yemen's economic condition remained gloomy under President Hadi, so there are rise of unemployment, shortages of basic necessities like water and food. To an extreme event, patronage, nepotism, bribery, fraud, and also other unethical practices had become the norm here. See, Yemen is on the 195 in the corruption rank in 2020, and it remained the same from the previous year. No improvement at all.
Regarding the condition of secularism in Yemen, as we know, Islam is the Yemen state religion, and the Constitution of Republic of Yemen declared that Islamic law is the source of all legislation, which state legislation is entirely derived from religious law or religious authorities. So Yemen can be considered as a non-secular state, which they don't apply the principle of separation of the state matter from religious matter. In Yemen, the non-religious are barred from holding a government office. It is also illegal to register an atheist, secularist, or other non-religious NGO or other human rights organization in Yemen. Religious or ideological instruction is mandatory in all or most state-funded schools with no secular alternative. In Yemen, it is illegal to advocate secularism, and the expression of thought from the non-religious is highly to be met with hatred or violence.
Moving on to Yemen's economic status. Along with the presence of war, of course, Yemen's economic condition and prospect are bleak. The economy of Yemen was already worse even before the war because there is no longer a stable source of income for hundreds of thousands of families, and many public servants have not earned a regular salary in many years. In 2020, it's getting worse. Poverty is increasing in Yemen, and overpriced food threaten the household welfare. You can see in the diagram how Yemen's GDP growth and inflation since the outbreak of war in 2014. It is interesting, to know how the Houthis handle the economy during COVID-19. So the Houthis are in control of the area which is the most populated in Yemen, which is in Sana'a. So they are great economic opportunities for them, and if they declared lockdown, they could not generate income. So if they impose restriction, they will no longer be able to bring supply for their military affairs for their areas of control, and also the Houthis are secretly disclosing here means they are secretly revealing how many people who have COVID. Next, Yemen's rival powers over bank notes. It is basically a dispute between old and new bank notes in the same state, which it threatens to build two economies. Yemenis faced difficulties as many public sector workers in Houthis areas have stopped receiving salaries from the Aden government, so mainly because the Houthi bans the usage of new Yemeni rial in their control area in Sana'a due to the fact that they wanted to avoid sharp rise of inflation and widespread money printing by the government. So these two types of currencies in Yemen had led to the collapse of Yemen's currency against foreign currency. As a response, on December 2020, there was a protest in Yemen's southern city of Taiz due to the fall of local currency. So all this while, I've been presenting about the bad sides of Yemen, but I have to be positive right now because even though Yemen is declared as unsafe country to travel, I also want to promote the beauty inside Yemen. So since the outbreak of war, the number of tourists dropped significantly, and almost no data of the number of tourists were to be found. So there are places that still could be visited, like Socotra, which Socotra is also part of Yemen, but it has never been in war. So the island is politically unstable, but it is still safe though. Socotra is famously known for its dragon blood trees. It's like what you can see in the picture, and Socotra is a nature-driven island. So due to the limited access to Socotra, of course there are barely tourists there, and to get there we must follow some logistic plannings and also other stuff. Okay, I will pass the floor to Kyria.
Now we will move to the social aspect. First of all, I will explain about the literacy rate in Yemen. Due to the conflicts in Yemen, educational access and literacy efforts are not a top priority. It is reported that in 2015, only 65% of the population could read and write, and there were 623,000 illiterate youth and 4.8 million illiterate adults in Yemen. So this condition of literacy rate can be related with the education system in Yemen. The education cycle in Yemen consists of 9 years of primary education, followed by 3 years of study at secondary level. It is prescribed by law that primary school students learn about Islamic rituals as well as history and culture within the context of Islamic civilization. Shia and Sunni Muslim are taught the same curriculum, but there are reports that schools in Houthi controlled areas are teaching Zaidi principles. In Yemen, primary education is compulsory between the age of 6 to 14. However, the conflict there had affected the schools and also the girls' access to education. Now we will move to the condition of education in Yemen. According to UNICEF, children that miss out from school has exceeded 2 million in 2019, and 1 in 5 schools in Yemen can no longer be used due to the direct or indirect impact from the war. The school will also face problem of lack availability of teaching staff due to the inability to paying their salaries. So what can I say is that the conflicts in Yemen had a large negative impact on the education system in Yemen. The lack of access to education has forced many children into child marriage, child labor, child trafficking, or recruitment of child soldiers. As education is collapsing in Yemen, various global NGOs have worked to increase the accessibility of education across Yemen, such as UNICEF, which they ensure education for children in Yemen. It is also reported that UNICEF is supporting teachers and school-based staff by providing teachers with incentives to help them to cover some of their needs, such as transportation, food, medicines, and other basic items. Despite of this, the development of an accessible and sustainable education system in Yemen still has a long way to go. Moving on to the Index of Happiness and Humanitarian Crisis. In 2019, Yemen was recorded as the 10th least happy country, which ranked at 151. This shows that Yemenis are suffering, and this can be seen from their condition of humanitarian. In 2017, Yemen was declared as the world's largest humanitarian disaster by the United Nations. Yemen also was recorded as one of the poorest countries in the Arab world and has witnessed a decline in humanitarian conditions following the socio-political conflicts. The conflict has killed and injured thousands of people and destroyed their homes. There are 20 million people in Yemen are suffering from hunger, malnutrition, and at risk of famine. They are also in urgent need of clean and safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene assistance. It is also reported that about 19 million people of Yemen has lost access to healthcare, and 98,000 children under 5 is at risk of dying without urgent treatment for severe acute malnutrition. There are also more than 900,000 suspected cholera cases, including about 2,000 associated deaths. In 2020, UN reported that there are about 233,000 people have been killed in Yemen, including 3,153 children, and more than 3 million people have been displaced from their home due to these conflicts in Yemen. Regarding the condition of human rights in Yemen, it can be seen as problematic in numerous ways. There have been many human rights violations committed by various groups due to the conflict, and in some cases, they even breaking the international law of human rights. Since 2015, there are about 19 unlawful coalition airstrikes which destroy and damage homes, markets, hospitals, schools, and mosques in Yemen. It is also reported that food and medical supplies have been blocked, and they deny access to the population that are in need. In addition, they have imposed restrictions on aid workers and interfered with the aid delivery. The conflict also had violated the children's rights, which since 2017, doctors in the capital of Sana'a war and attacked by the various forces. Many children were also forcibly involved into child marriage, child labor, child trafficking, or recruitment of child soldiers. It is stated that the minimum age for military service is 18. However, in 2017, the UN verified 842 cases of recruitment and use of boys as young as 11 for military by all parties. This is the last part under social, which is the rights of women. Prior to the conflict in Yemen, women faced discriminatory and vulnerable to violence. To add on, there are also no legislation in Yemen addressing about domestic violence and no specific law addressing to sexual harassment. Although women have the right to pursue education and seek employment, some guardians also restrict these activities. This is because inequality does not only come from the government but also from the culture, and it is also because of the conflict itself. In terms of the marriage, there is no minimum age for marriage, which it led to child marriage. Women also cannot marry without the permission from their male guardians, and they do not have equal rights to child guardianship. In terms of divorce, women have no equal rights as men, which men are able to divorce and illiterate their wives, while women can only obtain a divorce under a limited range of circumstances. As for the inheritance, even though women have the legal right to own land and non-land assets, the condition of poverty, illiteracy, unawareness of the economic rights, and discriminatory practices have limited the ability of women to exercise this right. In most cases, women hand over their administration of this property to their husband or male relatives. Meanwhile, in rural areas, women are often being denied on their inheritance right.
To conclude, crisis in Yemen in the first place was to do with unification. The unification had not been implemented correctly, so that was the reason for current situation. The Yemeni wanted peace, but it is far from here. Look, the example is about the new government that I was presenting just now. So how to achieve peace if there is no consensus nor agreement achieved among the parliament members and the people itself? So it is far from clear. Also, the sort of single centralized authority that would classify Yemen as a united state, it was missing, it was gone. And how to get a united state when there are still power battles happening in a single state? So the question remains unanswered until now. Thank you, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.